Imagine playing in the Super Bowl. The Super Bowl, right? Thousands of fans, packed stadium, millions of people watching around the world, and you're down 50 points. And as opposed to giving up, your incredibly brilliant coach with your amazing quarterback mounts one of the greatest comebacks in sports history. One touchdown, another touchdown, a field goal, another touchdown. And slowly, you're climbing back. And with every touchdown, you can feel the crowd get more and more excited. And now you're at the end of the game. You're in the 10-yard line. Next touchdown wins the game. Coach calls a timeout. Everyone goes to the sidelines. Everyone's waiting for the play call. And the coach looks around and goes, okay, guys, here's the deal. Hey, turns to his one player and goes, can you do me a favor? He goes, yeah, coach, whatever you want. He goes, listen, right outside the stadium is a grocery store. I'm thinking, why don't we just have a little bit of a meal on the side just before the game's over? Like, let's just capture this moment and can you go grab a couple of things and bring it in? And 1 mile away is a wine store. Do you mind Ubering to the wine store? And the player's like, coach, you all right? What are you talking about? Wine stores, grocery, what are you talking? He goes, one town over is a really good bread shop. Just, do you mind bring some bread, wine, get some food? We'll hang out on the sidelines, 20 minutes, get back in the game. They're like, what, are you serious? Coach, you're right? How about we win the game and we'll go to a restaurant? What are you talking about? This week's Torah portion. Jews are down. 210 years of slavery. Radio silence. The greatest coach of all time shows up. Picks the greatest quarterback of all time. And God and Moses, lahavdil, go down to Egypt. And they play one of the greatest games ever played. It's the showdown. And every single plague is more momentum. Blood, frogs, lice. 4, 5, 6. What do you think's happening? The whole world is watching. The greatest comeback kid story of all time. The Jews are going out of their minds. In this week's Torah portion, we're up to the last 3. Locusts. Darkness descends on Egypt. And Pharaoh and Moses get into a fight and they break off. And now it's time for the final play. They're on the 10-yard line. This is it. Next touchdown wins. 10th plague, and we're out of here. Moses calls in. God calls in Moses. He calls the quarterback literally to the huddle and says, go tell the Jewish people. What should be the next words out of God's mouth? Go tell the Jewish people, get ready. We're leaving tonight. I got this. We're closing the game out. Last plague, death of the firstborn. We're out of here. We'll go to the desert. I don't know. I got a shmorg waiting in the desert. I don't know. It's God. Wouldn't that make sense? Close the game, win the game, go to the restaurant. You know what God says? Here's what I want you to do. Tell the Jewish people. It says, new moon. He goes, tell the Jewish people in 10 days from now, they got to go get a sheep. A sheep. Moses is like, a sheep? What? What are you talking about? The grocery store? Yeah. And then they got to take the sheep and keep it in the house for 4 days. Now, they weren't living in palatial mansions, you understand, right? They were living in one-room huts. Bah, bah, like the kids around sheep in the house, 4 days. And then after 4 days, you know what you're going to do? Moses is like, no, please tell me. We're going to slaughter it. Take the blood, put it on the bed, the doorpost, and that night you can have a little bit of a party. You have Seder. And then we're out of here. Really? Got to do the whole thing for 15 days? You can't just leave tonight and have this the sheep party outside? What's with the digression with the sheep? Why is that has to happen now before they leave? You have to understand what's going on. The sheep wasn't just a sheep, right? Back then, the Egyptians worshipped the sheep. It was the god. The Jewish people were slaves for 210 years, but wherever we go, we adopt the host culture. American Jews have a lot of America in them, right? English Jews have a lot of England in them. South African Jews have South Africa in them. Wherever we go as a people, we live in a certain environment. We can't help, as much as we try, to fully adopt everything around us. And sometimes it's the values and the customs and the gods, if you will, of the host culture. Well, guess what? The Jews were slaves for 210. They adopted the gods of the Egyptians. They were holding on to those gods. The game of Egypt wasn't God against Pharaoh. The game of Egypt was also God and the Jewish people. every single plague, the Jews were realizing that there's a God. There's only one God in this world. But God says, here's the story. I'm playing for you. And if I finish this off and the 10th plague comes in and I will move you out the next day, that's just physical freedom. That's not freedom. I can take you out of Egypt, no problem. But can I take Egypt out of you? Only you can take Egypt out of you. If you're holding on to the gods, if you're holding on to that sheep, if you're holding on to that way of life, I can move you from Ramses to Jerusalem. It won't matter. Before we leave, the game's almost over. You got to make a big call. Are you willing to let go of the gods that you really respected until now? And so God tells Moses, 10 days from now, that means they're thinking about it. It's not going to be a game time. It's not going to be a rash decision. They're not going to go at night and slaughter in the middle of the night and move on. It's 10 days of, am I willing to walk the streets in Egypt with a sheep? And then 4 days of it being in my home, looking at it, having people look in my windows and being like, are they really going to kill our gods? And then taking the blood and putting it on my doorstep. Are you willing, God says, to slaughter the negativity, to release that which holds you back? The story of Egypt is not just a story in history, it's a story of our lives. Freedom that we see in the story of Exodus is the freedom that we go through every single year. How many times in our lives are we not free because we're holding on to something that's holding us back? A grudge, an old belief, a stereotype, something that we learned when we were younger, but we couldn't understand it then, so we hold on to it our whole lives. How many times did we have an experience that was 5, 10, 20, 30 years ago, and it shapes how we see the future? When that was one person, that was when I was younger, that was in a weak moment. How many times are the habits that we may have, or the beliefs that we may have, or the stereotypes that we may have, or the insecurities that we may have, are the sheep that we hold on to? I can't. I'm not enough. They don't like me. They're not like me. Do you remember what she did? Do you remember what he did? God doesn't care. These are all the sheeps that we hold on to. The negativity. And God says, I can prove miracles left and right. But you're not going to be free until you on your own decide to take out that negativity and slaughter it. And put the blood on that doorpost. You got to let go. You got to move on. You got to be willing to forgive. You got to be willing to stop doing that thing. Because if you're doing that thing, you can't get free. It's going to be hard. You got to stop. We all want freedom. We all want greatness. But are we willing to identify the sheep that are still in our lives? Are we willing to let go of that which holds us back? That's the real Super Bowl. That's freedom. And that's this week's Torah portion. Shabbat Shalom.